All right. Hi, everybody. My name is Dr. David Velasquez. I'm the General Chemistry Coordinator. I'm also a lab manager with Dr. Kathy Skybo and Dr. Jennifer Moore. Uh, First of all, congratulations for making it to USC and for making it to our chemistry program. We hope that you have a very wonderful experience. And today we'll be talking about our undergraduate laboratory safety and certain things that you should know and be prepared to have a productive summer, but most importantly, that you go home safe every single day. Let's talk about these things. If it'll let me. Okay, here we go. So, appropriate dress for the lab. So, first of all, before you even leave your house, you want to make sure that you're prepared for laboratory. You should always have closed-toed shoes, meaning that you're not wearing Crocs or sandals or anything like that, and you should have socks. The idea is that you don't want to expose your skin in case of any chemicals. So we shouldn't be able to see your feet or ankles in the lab. You should always wear long pants, so you shouldn't be wearing shorts or short skirts, anything like that that's exposing your skin. And shirts should be short or long sleeve, so you shouldn't have tank tops or low neck tops. If you have long hair, you should have it pulled back and tied. And loose jewelry should be removed because it can always like snag into something and then cause an accident. So most importantly, you just want to avoid getting chemicals on your skin. So you should always have that in the back of your mind. What do I love about my body, and what do I want to make sure that it preserves so that if a chemical goes on it, it doesn't hurt me? So no socks, no lab. No sleeves, no lab. So if your TAs or we see that you're not dressed appropriately for lab, you will not have lab that day, and it could set you behind, and you could lose some points there. So unfortunately, not all fashion trends are lab friendly. So no crop pants in the lab if that's still in style. And ripped jeans are really cool. They look nice. It's very old classic style. But in the lab, again, you're exposing your skin. That's not going to be okay. So please don't have any ripped jeans or pants in the lab. Come to lab in comfortable full coverage clothing. So something like your pajamas, sweatpants, jeans. Those are all okay. You want to cover as much as possible. So here we're gonna do some PPE with Matt. So enjoy this.
Okay, today I'll be doing a quick demonstration of proper lab attire. It's important that you're wearing proper lab attire to every lab that you're in, or your TA will send you home for the day and you won't be able to perform the experiment you're supposed to perform. First things first, shirts must be down to like the middle of the upper arm right here. Nothing low cut, no tank tops, nothing of that sort. You want to make sure that your whole upper body is covered. For pants, you want to make sure you're wearing full length pants every time you come into lab. No shorts, nothing like that. You can't have any of this skin showing down here. So you want legs that go all the way down. For socks, they must go up to your ankle, up to your mid ankle. No short socks or anything like that. You need to make sure that the spot in between your pants and your shoes is fully covered. And finally, closed-toed shoes are required for lab. No sandals, no flip-flops, nothing like that. You want to make sure that your feet are covered, your whole body's covered to prevent any, hazardous chemicals getting on you throughout the lab. In addition to all of this, you also have PPE, or personal protective equipment. That includes a lab coat, provided there. Make sure that it is buttoned up all the way. There we go. Lab goggles and gloves. Also make sure you are wearing a face mask that does cover the nose and the mouth fully. And if you do have long hair, it is important that you bring a hair tie so you can properly tie that back up. You don't want any hair getting into your reaction or potentially, getting contaminated. And like I said earlier, make sure you are prepared when you come to lab. If you're not wearing the proper attire, you will be sent home by your lab TA and you will have to come back at another time to make that up.
All right. So one thing I want to clarify is that video was made in the pandemic. So we are not requiring face masks. So you don't have to wear a face mask to lab at all. But everything else he said still applies. So next thing we're going to talk about is the PPE, what Matt was.
Okay.
So PPE stands for personal protective equipment. So beyond the clothes that you wear, you should always have your safety goggles or safety glasses. These should always be worn in the lab. Remember, if you have a long hair, tie it up as a ponytail. You should always have a lab coat. So of course, right now I'm wearing like sleeves. I have some skin exposed, but when you have your lab coat, it's going to cover also your regular clothing as well as your arms. So this will give you even more protection as well as not getting your actual clothes dirty with chemicals. And when applicable, when we're dealing with certain chemicals, you should be wearing nitrile or latex gloves when necessary. Um, well, these should never be used to touch the doors. They shouldn't be used to touch your cell phones, your laptops. You should always treat gloves as when you put them on that they've been touching chemicals. And you don't want to touch your face, your hair, or anything else that you're going to take out when you leave the lab. So make sure you throw those away in the appropriate waste bins. So here's some PPE's do's. Always wear your safety glasses. Always wear your lab coat in the laboratory. If you have any problems with like your goggles fogging, ask your TAs for any tips. If you have contact lenses, they should be avoided. So there are goggles that exist for both for glasses. These are the larger ones that cover over your glasses. And then we also have safety glasses for if you don't wear glasses that just can kind of go over your face. Now, goggles on the head was a stylish thing in the 90s, but typically we don't do it in the lab. You don't want your goggles up here or on your arms. They need to be covering your eyes. If they're anywhere else, your TA is going to let you know to put them back on, or you'll be asked to leave the laboratory. So, responsibility in the lab, big one. Never eat or drink anything in the lab. Treat anything in there, even water that you know is like water. Do not treat it as it's been contaminated. Why? Because there's going to be a lot of chemicals that look like water. There's going to be a lot of chemicals that look like sugar and things that are benign, but they could be very toxic to your body. So we never eat or drink anything in the lab. You don't want to have any music, AirPods, laptops, or phones out in the lab. Why? Your laptops and phones are important. They're expensive. You don't want to get chemicals on them. We also need you to be paying attention in the lab. There could be a fire. There could be some sort of emergency. Your TA needs to talk to you. You need to be alert and at the whole time that you're in your lab. So I know there are things like tumblers and Stanley cups. Those definitely need to stay outside of the lab. If you have regular closed water bottles, they can go into your backpack and they can stay in there, but you should never take it out inside the laboratory to drink at all. These ones specifically have to stay outside because they're always typically open. And if something's open, it's very easy for a chemical to get in there, which can make you sick or be harmful. Always use common sense. You know, sometimes it's not very common, but do your best to do it. Follow directions, read your pre-labs. And if you have any glassware, always label it. Remember, there's a lot of chemicals that look like water, but they're not necessarily that. And we're going to talk about how chemicals need to be put and set in their own places. So before you come to the lab, make sure that you read all the safeguards about the chemicals that you're using. Make sure you know about the safety precautions in your pre-lab procedure. And arrive dressed appropriate clothing. Remember, chemicals look similar, so always know what you're working with and label all of your glassware. And arrive wearing your lab glasses and lab coat, always ready for lab. You'll see these beautiful little diamonds around, and they're there essentially to let you know how dangerous the chemical is. So the first one, the blue one, is going to be about your health hazard. Typically, if it's a 0, it's an ordinary material. If it's 1, it's slightly hazardous. If it's 2, it's pretty hazardous. If it's 3, it's very dangerous. And if it's 4, it can be very deadly. Typically, you won't be dealing with 4s in any of our laboratories. The red one is about how explosive something can get. So it's about the fire hazard. If it's a 0, it will not burn. If it's 1, above 200 degrees Fahrenheit, it could catch fire. If it's 2, if it's above 100 degrees Fahrenheit, it could catch fire. A 3, if it's below 100 degrees Fahrenheit, it can catch fire very easily. And if it's below 73, it's almost spontaneously can't combust. So be very careful with chemicals like these. If it's yellow, this talks about how reactive a chemical is. A lot of times this could be things like sudden explosions or sudden heat. So if it's 0, it's stable. If it's 1, it can be unstable if you heat it. 2, it can have a violent chemical change. 3, it can detonate. And 4 may detonate. And the white one typically will be blank a lot of times, but you'll have certain images here. These are for special hazardous for special chemicals. So if it says OX, it means it's very strong oxidizing material. If it has like a W with a line across it, it could mean that it's reactive with water. And if it's COR, it can be that it's corrosive, like acids or bases, which you'll learn about this semester if you haven't already. So remember, safety in the lab. No eating, chewing, drinking in the lab. No food, no bubble gum, no juice, and definitely those Stanley cups are not to be in the lab at all. Latex and nitrile gloves are provided for you for safety, but however, many chemicals that are low and dangerous, you don't, low in the danger scale, you don't need to always wear gloves for those. But once you come in contact with the lab, you shouldn't touch your skin, your safety glasses, the clothing, or exit door. And until when you remove your gloves, make sure that you always wash your hands before you leave the lab. Now, be aware. Keep the aisles clear of tripping hazards, so backpacks, stools, etc. We should always have like walkways cleared so people can walk around without tripping. So backpacks, stools, skateboards, and if there's any spills, any chemical spills, inform your neighbors immediately, and definitely let the TA know that there is a spill. There's a colorful spill there. Now, especially in organic chemistry, but even in general chemistry, you will be seeing fume hoods. So fume hoods are there to essentially suck up chemicals that have a lot of smell. They're very volatile. So you want to have these fume hoods to essentially pull it out for you. So typically a lot of organic chemicals are very volatile. So most of your experience will be done in a fume hood. So some things you want to know is that you don't put your head in the fume hood. Otherwise, it defeats the purpose of that. So anything that's volatile should be done in the fume hood. You never want to block the flow from the opening, so you don't want to have a bunch of chemicals and a bunch of clutter in there because it's going to prevent the efficiency of the fume hood. And everything should be kept 6 inches away from the fume hood. So you see here this beaker is pretty far in. You don't want to put chemicals like right at the edge because then again, it'll defeat the purpose of the fume hood, pulling in those vapors away from you. And you never want to open these fume hoods all the way. There are safety guards to prevent you from doing so, but if you find a way to open it, don't do it. Now, disposal in the lab is very important. We definitely want to make sure that we keep the environment very clean and nice. So dispose of excess chemicals properly. Follow your pre-lab and your TA for instructions on these. So only water and soap can go down the drain. Everything else will be assumed as hazardous chemical waste. So liquid waste will always be going into a carboy, and these can typically separate into two kinds, aqueous or organic. And at times there's also halogenated organic waste. There's even more separation there, but this will be on an experiment to experiment basis. But you should always know and read the labels to make sure that you're dumping the excess chemicals into the right containers. Solid chemical waste should always go into the big blue drums that you'll see in labs, unless otherwise stated by your TA. So in here, this is where you could put any extra solid waste. You might have pulled too much chemical that got contaminated. You don't want to put chemicals back into the original container. So if there's too much, we can dump them in here. Also, all of your gloves, chem wipes, paper towels can go into here that are contaminated with anything. If there's no chemical contamination, it can go into the regular trash bins. Now, why do we care so much about this? Well, we like the environment. So here's an example of how chemicals can disrupt our water flow, our water sources. So they can be hazards to humans and animal life. So we need to do our part here at USC to make sure that we contribute to a safe environment as well. Also, there are laws, federal and state regulations, and we have to hold ourselves accountable for these laws. So let's all do our part to prevent this. Keep this in mind. Care about the animals. Care about ourselves. It's all the same. Now, broken glass has its own very special container. So broken glass sucks, but it happens often. Glass usually will find a way to break itself. So when glass breaks, it should always go into the broken glass container. If you see cracked glassware, do not use it and get it replaced for the TA or stock room. Always let your TA know when something breaks. Don't be embarrassed. It happens to everybody. It happens to me. So this can all go, all of these broken graduated cylinders, beakers, this all considered broken glass. And so when we do this, we want to make sure that we're separating things properly. So only broken glass can go into this blue and white glass disposal things. We don't throw other things in there. Paper towels, gloves, chem wipes, chemicals never go into the glass disposal. So chem wipes, gloves, and paper towels can go into regular trash cans or the big blue drums. They don't go into each other. So we never want to see broken glass in regular waste because it can hurt the custodians. And we don't want to see any of this into the glass waste because it fills them up faster, and they can get expensive to to dispose of these glass properly. So be mindful of what your waste is. So before and after every lab, your labs will be inspected. If the waste is not properly disposed of, if you do not clean up after yourselves in your space, if chemicals are left uncapped or spilled, or chemicals are left without a label, points will be deducted from your laboratory experiment. So you always want to make sure they're standing upright, they're properly labeled, things are closed, and you have happy people. If things are spilled, everything's disordered, lids are off, caps are off, spilled chemicals, you're going to get a lot of minus points in your lab report, and you don't want that. You want to be able to pass your courses. So always wear your safety equipment in the lab. Be aware of what's going on around you. Recap your chemicals. Ask your TA if you have any safety questions. They're there to help you. And always dispose of waste properly. Never measure directly out of a stock bottle. So you never want to just get your big old bottle, those 4-liter bottles, and try to measure out of that. That's not good. You always want to pour it into a smaller bottle, smaller container that you can do it. You never want to pour chemicals back into the original container. And you don't want to leave a mess for someone else to clean. You don't want to be coming into the next section and you're like, wow, my area is a mess. Don't do that. You don't like it. Don't do it to someone else. Never put glass waste in trash and never put trash in the glass waste. And please never, ever drink or eat in the lab. Please. If we see you doing this, you'll be asked to leave and you don't want to, and you're going to lose a lot of points. You don't want that. Now, lab safety. Now, accidents can happen, Murphy's Law. So, but we do have lab safety procedures to minimize the frequency of accidents and how severe that they can get. Remember, the guy is one lab accident away from becoming a supervillain. So, emergency procedures. We're going to have first aid kits. Report any and all accidents to your team, no matter how minor you think you are. They can be cuts, scrapes, burns. Report it to your TA. There's first aid available, and we have student health services if you need it. Now, if there are major accidents like eye injuries, chemical burns, student health services is going to be mandatory. Please, we're all a team here. We all are there for each other. So if you see another student that is struggling with something, help them out. Alert the TA. Time is of the essence whenever there is an injury. Now, in SGM, the first floor, there are emergency phones outside of the labs between the stock room and the study room. And on the second floor, they're outside by SGM 218. Now, this is one thing that you should maybe pause the video right now, and you should add this number to your cell phone. This is DPS, and they're going to be the emergency contact. If you have this in your phone number, in your cell phone, you can call them directly. If you try calling 911, it's going to take a while, but they're eventually going to make their way to DPS. But as I said before, time is of the essence. It's better to call them first rather than 911. Now, if you get any chemicals in your eyes, there should be about 1 or 2 people to help. And, if there's ever an injury, most of the class should do their best to give them some courtesy, to give them a little bit of privacy. You want to wash out your eyes using these eye wash stations for at least 15 minutes. Now, if you get a lot of chemicals not on your eyes, but on your skin, your body, you want to go directly to the safety shower. You're going to pull on the safety shower handle to start the flow of water. You're going to remove your clothing then affected by the spill as you're getting water on you because you want to wash off the chemical. If the TA is not already involved, another student should get their attention to let them know what's going on. And then eventually, after you're okay, we can write the incident report with the help of the TA to explain why we had to use the safety shower and what happened and how we can prevent this from happening again. Again, this should also be at least 15 minutes that you're in the safety shower. So take immediate action. Turn the faucet on, the safety shower, remove contaminated clothing. Embarrassment is better than a permanent damage. So I know taking off your clothes is going to be very embarrassing, but it's better than having permanent damage to your body. So that's why we ask other students to give as much privacy as possible. Flush the area for at least 15 minutes and resume the water if you still wash even after 15 minutes if you still feel some pain. 1 or 2 people should help, and we'll eventually get proper medical care for you to come to you and help you. So some emergency equipment that you'll see is your emergency shower and eye wash station, and you'll also see fire extinguishers in case there is a fire. So in case there's a fire, you don't need to use it. The TAs are trained to use these fire extinguishers as well as the laboratory managers. But if you are a student, evacuate immediately and then call TPS, letting them know that there is a fire. Now, if there is an earthquake, now, typically we've heard this, especially if you're from California, you've heard this all your life. But if there is an earthquake, you want to drop to the floor and avoid any falling objects or toppling furniture. If there are no chemicals on a desk, take cover under a desk, table, or other sturdy piece of furniture. Avoid glassware, chemicals, or equipment. Unfortunately, in a chemistry lab, there are a lot of dangers, which makes it hard for an earthquake. So avoid standing near shelves, fume hoods, glassware, or chemical storage. You don't want to run or evacuate during the active earthquake. If no shelter is available, which might happen a lot, you want to use your arms, your lab coat, a notebook to shield your head and face, and just kind of ride out the earthquake. Once the earthquake is over, we're going to evacuate the laboratory. So to evacuate in the case of a fire, earthquake, or active shooter, anything that could happen, if you're on the first floor general chemistry labs, you'll exit out and you'll make your way out to this door towards GFS, and you'll exit out here. If you are in the organic chemistry labs upstairs, you'll make your way down the staircase. The elevators, never use an elevator during an emergency, and you'll make your way out to the same door on the first floor. Now you're going to walk over the steps facing the track. In this area in GFS, where you see this little blue guy, this is where you'll all meet up, and the TAs will make a head count to make sure that there's no student left behind. And if there is, the emergency responders can come and help you out and make sure that they're not risking their lives for nothing. So please do not run away. Do not go home. Make sure you come here to make sure that everyone is accounted for in the case of an emergency. Over here. So that concludes our safety. Thank you for being safe. Remember, safety is everyone's responsibility. The TA, you, the student, ourselves. If we all work together, we can avoid all of these incidents. Do not be afraid. Respect the chemistry, but don't be afraid. And here's some fun little memes from The Simpsons. So make sure you check your labels. Know for sure before you pour. And let's keep the environment safe. All right. Fight on. Have a great semester.